Life has a way of piling weight onto your soul without you even realizing it. Day by day, moment by moment, unseen burdens accumulate, fears you have yet to face, attachments that drain rather than nourish, expectations that were never yours to carry. You may not see them, but you feel them. They seep into your mind, turning ambition into exhaustion, love into obligation, joy into something that feels just out of reach. But what if the key to peace was not in seeking more, but in letting go? There is a quiet truth hidden in the wisdom of the ages, one that has been whispered in temples, echoed in sacred texts, and passed down through generations of those who have walked this path before you. It is this: you are not broken, you are burdened. And true peace, the kind that cannot be shaken by the storms of life, is not something you must search for. It is something that has been with you all along, buried beneath the things you refuse to release. Imagine carrying a heavy sack on your back. You have held it for so long that it feels like a part of you. You don't question its presence. You don't stop to wonder what's inside. You simply adjust to the weight, believing that this is just how life is supposed to feel. But what if you put it down? What if one by one, you remove the things that no longer served you? Would you finally breathe freely? Would you finally feel the lightness of being that you have longed for? There are things, habits, relationships, fears that are quietly poisoning your soul. Some have been with you for years, perhaps even your entire life. And the truth is, most people never summon the courage to let them go. They cling to the familiar, even when it is the very thing causing their suffering. But the ones who dare to release, the ones who are brave enough to subtract rather than add, they are the ones who discover the freedom that others only dream of. The first weight you must release is the one that has drained more souls than any other, the weight of toxic relationships. A tree does not hold on to dead branches. It does not weep for the limbs that no longer serve its growth. It releases them, making space for new life. And yet, as humans, we resist this truth. We cling to relationships that have long outlived their purpose, friendships that deplete us, family ties that manipulate us, partners who no longer love us. We tell ourselves that we must endure, that we must be patient, that things will change. But deep down, we know the truth. Some people are not meant to walk with us forever. Think of someone in your life who leaves you feeling drained rather than uplifted. Someone who makes you question your worth, who belittles your dreams, who takes more than they ever give. Perhaps you have convinced yourself that if you just try harder, if you give more of yourself, they will change. But here is a truth few are willing to face. The person you are clinging to may have already let you go. Imagine a monk walking a long road, carrying a heavy sack on his back. His steps are slow, his body weary, but he refuses to set it down. A passerby asks, "Why do you carry such a burden?" The monk replies, "Because I have carried it for so long, I no longer know how to let go." Many of us are like this monk. We hold on to people not because they bring us joy, but because we have grown accustomed to their weight. But just because something is familiar does not mean it is good for you. You suffer not because others hurt you, but because you expect them to be different from who they have already shown themselves to be. Letting go is not an act of anger or revenge. It is an act of wisdom. It is the realization that your peace is more valuable than another person's presence. There is an old story of two monks who came across a woman struggling to cross a river. One monk carried her across and set her down on the other side. Hours later, the second monk was still upset. "We are not supposed to touch women," he said. "You broke the rule." The first monk smiled. "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The same question applies to you. Why are you still carrying people who have already left your life emotionally? Why are you holding on to pain that no longer serves you? Forgiveness is not about excusing another's behavior. It is about freeing yourself from their hold on your mind. It is the act of saying, "I release you," not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Not every goodbye needs closure. Not every wound needs words. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is to walk away without explanation. Like a tree shedding its dead branches, make space for new growth. The second weight you must release is the attachment to unnecessary goals. A river does not force its way forward. It does not question the rocks in its path or worry about where it will end up. It simply flows, adjusting, carving its way naturally. Yet as humans, we resist this flow. We create rigid expectations. I must have this job by this age. I must be married by this time. I must achieve this status by this milestone. And when life does not unfold according to this script, we feel lost, frustrated, even unworthy. But the truth is, the world owes you nothing. The timeline you created exists only in your mind. And the more you attach yourself to it, the more you suffer. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough? That the finish line always moves? That as soon as you reach one goal, another takes its place? Imagine a man stacking stones, determined to build the tallest tower. With every stone he thinks, just one more, and I will be satisfied. But the tower grows unstable. The higher he builds, the more anxious he becomes, fearing that it might collapse. He spends so much time perfecting his tower that he forgets why he started building in the first place. And then one day, a strong wind comes, and in seconds, everything falls. The man is devastated, not realizing that the joy was never in the final stone, but in the process of stacking. Many of us live like this man, obsessed with the height of our achievements, never stopping to ask if we are even on the right path. But what if the goal you are chasing is actually blocking the life you are meant to live? What if, in your pursuit of a certain title, income, or status, you are missing the opportunities for real fulfillment? There is an old parable of a Zen master and his student walking through a dense forest. The student, eager to reach the mountaintop, kept asking, "How much longer?" But the master never answered. Finally frustrated, the student demanded, "Why won't you tell me?" The master smiled. "Because the moment you stop asking, you will realize you are already there." Life is not a checklist. You are not here to race against an invisible timeline. The most meaningful experiences often happen when you surrender, when you allow yourself to be guided by purpose rather than pressure. Some of the most fulfilled people are not the ones who hit every goal, but the ones who had the wisdom to let go of the ones that no longer serve them. Ask yourself, what goal are you chasing out of fear rather than purpose? What expectation are you holding on to because society told you that you should? Release it. Flow like the river. Trust that you are already on your way. There is a story of a traveler who wandered through a desert, burdened by a heavy sack filled with stones. He had been carrying them for so long that he had forgotten why he picked them up in the first place. When asked why he did not set them down, he simply replied, "Because they are mine." He had confused ownership with necessity, believing that just because something had been with him for a long time, it must remain with him forever. But what if he had let them go? What if, instead of holding on to the weight of things that no longer served him, he had freed himself to walk lighter, faster, with more ease? This is how most people live their lives, carrying burdens they no longer need, gripping onto memories that only cause pain, clinging to identities that have outlived their purpose. They do not realize that the weight they carry is not their fate, it is their choice. And the moment they decide to release it, the moment they stop identifying with their suffering, they step into a new kind of existence, one that is free, light, and untethered by the chains of the past. One of the heaviest burdens people carry is the attachment to their past self. You are not who you were yesterday. You are not defined by the mistakes you made, the choices you regret, the moments of weakness that haunt you. And yet, so many people imprison themselves within an outdated version of who they used to be. They replay old failures in their mind, dragging the past into the present, allowing it to shape their future. But tell me this, if you were watching a river, would you try to hold on to the water that has already passed? Would you reach into the current, trying to grasp what is already gone? Number, because you understand that the river moves, and so must you. But the mind clings. It tells you that you are still the person who failed. It tells you that you are still the one who was rejected, who was hurt, who was not enough. But if you truly look, you will see that every cell in your body has changed since that moment. You have learned, you have grown, you have risen from things that once broke you. So why do you still let them define you? Imagine a snake shedding its skin. It does not cling to what it has outgrown. It does not mourn the layers it leaves behind. It simply releases. It steps into its new form without apology, without hesitation, without explanation. You too must do the same. There is no glory in holding on to what no longer serves you. There is no wisdom in staying bound to an identity that no longer fits. Growth is not something you need permission for. It is not something that requires approval. It is something that demands you to move forward, whether others understand or not. But the world will try to pull you back. It will remind you of who you were, bringing up your past, defining you by your lowest moments. It will whisper, "Who do you think you are to change?" And in that moment, you must decide. Do you stay small to make others comfortable? Do you continue carrying the weight of an old version of yourself because others refuse to see your transformation? Or do you finally step into who you were always meant to be? Some will not recognize the new you. Let them go. Some will try to remind you of your mistakes. Let them talk. Some will be uncomfortable with your growth. Let them be. Your path is not about proving to others that you have changed. It is about proving to yourself that you deserve to move forward. There is a well-known Zen story of a man who approached a master, asking how to attain peace. The master handed him a cup and poured tea until it overflowed. The man quickly pulled his hands back. "Why do you keep pouring? The cup is already full," he exclaimed. The master smiled. "Exactly," he said. "You cannot receive something new while you are still full of the old." What are you still holding on to that leaves no room for something greater? What pain, what label, what story are you clinging to that is keeping you from stepping into the life that is waiting for you? The only way to truly move forward is to empty the cup, to release what no longer belongs, to let go of the past self that no longer serves you, to make space for something new to enter. And yet, even as people begin to release the past, they find themselves trapped by something just as heavy: the weight of resentment. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It burns, it corrodes, it drains you. And yet so many people choose to hold on to it, convinced that their pain is justified. But tell me this, if you touch fire and it burns you, do you keep your hand in the flames to prove that you were hurt? Or do you pull away, tend to your wounds, and move forward? Some people will never apologize. Some will never understand the damage they caused. Some will continue living their lives as if they never hurt you. But your healing is not dependent on their remorse. Your peace is not something that can be given to you by another. It is something you must take for yourself. Forgiveness is not about saying, "What happened was okay." It is about saying, "I will no longer carry this with me." It is about refusing to let your past pain poison your present. It is about freeing yourself, not because they deserve it, but because you do. There is an old parable of two monks walking through a forest. They came across a woman struggling to cross a river. One of the monks picked her up and carried her across. Hours later, as they continued walking, the other monk finally spoke. "We are not supposed to touch women. You broke the rule." The first monk smiled. "I put her down hours ago," he said. "Why are you still carrying her?" Ask yourself, what are you still carrying? What pain, what grudge, what resentment have you kept alive long after the moment has passed? Is it not time to set it down? Is it not time to release it so that you can walk freely? Letting go is not weakness, it is strength. It is the realization that your peace is too precious to be held hostage by the past. It is the understanding that no matter what has been done to you, the greatest power you hold is the ability to move forward, unshaken, untethered, free. So take a breath, feel the weight you have been carrying, and ask yourself, am I ready to put it down? Because the truth is, the moment you let go, you will finally understand something the world never told you. You were never meant to carry all of this in the first place. There comes a time when you must decide whether you will keep carrying the weight of everything that has hurt you, everything that has disappointed you, everything that has shaped you in ways you never asked for. There comes a moment when you must stand at the crossroads and ask yourself, do I move forward, or do I remain bound to what has already passed? Most people never ask this question. They spend their lives trapped in patterns they never chose, bound by the past in ways they never dared to question. They tell themselves that their pain is part of them, that their burdens are too heavy to set down. But what if that wasn't true? What if, at any moment, you could decide that the past no longer has the power to define you? Imagine a bird that has spent its entire life in a cage. The door has always been open, but it never realized it could leave. It has grown so used to its confinement that freedom feels like an impossibility. And so it remains inside, not because it must, but because it believes it must. You are no different. The weight you carry. But freedom is a choice. It is not given. It is not something you must wait for. It is something you must take. And the first step toward true freedom is to stop giving your energy to the things that drain you. How much of your life has been spent replaying past mistakes? How much time have you lost arguing with yourself over things you can never change? How many hours have you wasted thinking about the people who hurt you, the opportunities you missed, the moments you wish you could relive? And what has any of it brought you? Has it made you lighter? Has it made you stronger? Or has it only kept you stuck, watching your life pass by as you hold on to things that no longer exist? There is an old story of a man who was lost in the desert. He carried a large sack of stones on his back, convinced that they were valuable. He struggled under their weight, barely able to walk. When another traveler passed by and asked him why he carried them, he replied, "Because they have been with me for so long, I do not know how to put them down." The traveler shook his head and said, "Then your suffering is not because of the desert, it is because you refuse to let go." Most people live like this man. They carry burdens not because they must, but because they know no other way to live. They hold on to pain because it is familiar. They grip tightly to identities that do not serve them, relationships that no longer nourish them, beliefs that only bring them suffering. But just because something has been with you for a long time does not mean it must stay. Just because something once mattered does not mean it still does. You have the power to decide what you will carry and what you will release. And the moment you stop explaining your pain, the moment you stop defending your suffering, you will see it for what it truly is, optional. But letting go is not easy. It requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the unknown, trust that whatever you release will be replaced by something better. And yet, most people do not trust. They cling, afraid that if they let go, they will be left with nothing. But tell me this, if your hands are full of what no longer serves you, how will you ever grasp what is meant for you? The world is constantly changing. Everything that is alive is in motion. The river does not hold onto the water that has passed. The trees do not cling to their old leaves. The night does not fight against the coming of the day. Everything flows. Everything moves. Only humans resist. Only humans try to hold on to what is already gone. But suffering is not in change itself. It is in resisting change. It is in the refusal to accept what already is. There is a Zen parable of a man who was swept away by a raging river. He fought against the current, thrashing, struggling, desperate to control the water. But the more he fought, the more he sank. Just as he was about to drown, he let go. He stopped fighting. He allowed the river to carry him. And in that surrender, he floated. He survived. He was carried safely to the shore. This is the lesson. Life is not meant to be fought. The more you resist, the more you suffer. The more you cling, the more you sink. But the moment you surrender, the moment you stop fighting against what is, you will find yourself carried to exactly where you were meant to be. But surrender is not giving up. It is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. It is standing in the middle of chaos and choosing not to be shaken. It is understanding that you do not need to control everything, that you do not need to have all the answers, that you do not need to keep proving yourself to a world that is too distracted to notice. Look at the people who truly live in peace. They do not argue. They do not explain. They do not force their truth onto others. They simply exist, moving like the river, adapting like the wind, rising like the sun, effortless, unshaken, untethered by the illusions of control. And this is what you must learn, not how to hold on tighter, but how to let go. Not how to force things to happen, but how to flow with what is already unfolding. Some people will not understand your journey. Some will question your choices. Some will expect you to stay the same, to explain yourself, to justify your growth. Let them. Their understanding is not required for you to move forward. Their approval is not necessary for you to step into your power. The ones who are meant to walk with you will not need an explanation. They will simply recognize you by your presence, by your energy, by the way you carry yourself without the weight of the past dragging you down. So ask yourself, what are you still carrying that is keeping you from rising? What pain, what identity, what belief have you convinced yourself is permanent? The truth is, nothing is permanent. Not your suffering, not your mistakes, not even your fear. Everything changes the moment you decide it does. The moment you stop explaining your past and start living your present. The moment you stop justifying your existence and start becoming who you were always meant to be. There is no one to convince, no one to prove yourself to, no one who holds power over your life but you. So let go, step forward, walk lighter, and see for yourself what happens when you finally stop holding on to the things that were never yours to carry in the first place. There is a moment when you wake up and realize that you have been carrying things that were never yours to bear. You have held on to the expectations of others, the weight of past mistakes, the fear of disappointing those around you. You have clung to identities that no longer fit, dreams that no longer inspire, relationships that have long outlived their purpose, and yet you keep carrying them, not because they serve you, but because you have forgotten how to put them down. But what if you did? What if, just for a moment, you loosened your grip? What if you stopped convincing yourself that suffering is the price of existence? What if you finally accepted that you are allowed to let go? Most people live their entire lives trying to be what others expect of them. They shape their choices around approval, molding themselves into something digestible, something acceptable, something safe. And in doing so, they forget who they were before the world told them who to be. But the truth is, you were never meant to fit into a mold. You were never meant to explain yourself to those who will not understand. You were never meant to waste your breath justifying your existence. The tree does not shrink itself because someone is afraid of its height. The ocean does not apologize for its depth. The stars do not ask for permission to shine. They simply are. And so must you be. But becoming who you were meant to be requires one thing: release. The release of everything that has held you back. The release of the fear that keeps you small. The release of the need to be liked, to be understood, to be accepted by those who were never meant to walk your path. There is a story of a man who climbed a great mountain, determined to reach the top. At the beginning of his journey, he carried a heavy bag filled with things he thought he needed. Books of wisdom, tools for survival, treasures from his past. But as he climbed, the weight became unbearable. Every step was harder than the last. He realized that if he wanted to reach the top, he had to start letting go. And so, one by one, he left things behind. The books that once seemed necessary were abandoned. The tools he thought he could not live without were set aside. The treasures he had clung to for so long no longer mattered. And when he finally reached the summit, he stood with nothing but himself, lighter, freer, at peace. This is your journey too. The higher you climb, the more you must release. The closer you get to your truth, the more you must let go of everything that is not aligned with it. You cannot rise while holding on to things that keep you bound. You cannot step into your power while explaining yourself to those who do not see your vision. You cannot walk your path while carrying the weight of who you used to be. But here is where most people get stuck. They fear that letting go means losing themselves. They fear that if they release the things that have defined them for so long, they will be left with nothing. But the truth is, what you let go of is not who you are. It is what has been blocking you from seeing who you have always been. Imagine a sculptor staring at a massive block of stone. To anyone else, it looks like nothing but a heavy, lifeless rock. But the sculptor sees what is inside. He does not add to the stone to create his masterpiece. He removes. He chips away at what does not belong. He carves, he shapes, he lets go of everything that is not needed until finally the true form emerges. This is your life. You do not need to add more. You do not need to chase more. You only need to remove everything that is not aligned with your truth. You only need to carve away the expectations, the fears, the need to be understood. And when you do, you will realize that what is left, you in your purest form, was always enough. But letting go requires courage. The world will try to pull you back. It will tell you that you must explain yourself, that you must justify your choices, that you must seek approval before you move forward. Do not listen. The world fears what it cannot control, and nothing is more uncontrollable than a soul that is truly free. Some people will call you distant. Let them. Some will say you have changed. Let them. Some will not understand the path you are walking. Let them. Their understanding is not required for you to continue. Their acceptance is not necessary for you to step into your power. Those who are meant to walk with you will not need an explanation. They will recognize you by your energy, by your presence, by the way you move through life without the weight of unnecessary burdens. A river does not explain its direction. A fire does not justify its heat. A bird does not apologize for flying. And you do not need to explain yourself for choosing growth, for choosing peace, for choosing to let go. So ask yourself, what are you still carrying that is keeping you from rising? What belief, what story, what fear has convinced you that you must stay where you are? The truth is, the moment you decide to release it, you will feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Lightness. And in that lightness, you will see what has been waiting for you all along. Not the approval of others, not the certainty of the future, but the quiet, undeniable knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Free, unshaken, whole. There is nothing to explain, nothing to prove, nothing to justify, only the simple, powerful truth that you are. There comes a time in life when you must decide whether you will keep shrinking to fit into the spaces that no longer serve you, or whether you will allow yourself to expand into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. It is a choice, though many pretend it isn't. They convince themselves that they must remain where they are because it is what they have always known, because it is what others expect, because stepping beyond the familiar feels like stepping into the unknown. And yet, if they were honest with themselves, they would admit that they are not truly living. They are merely existing, waiting for permission that will never come. But who are you waiting for? Who has convinced you that your freedom must be earned, that your dreams require explanation, that your growth must be justified? The tree does not ask before it reaches for the sky. The river does not seek approval before it flows toward the sea. The wind does not apologize for changing direction. Nature moves with certainty, not because it knows the outcome, but because it knows it must move, and so must you. Yet so many remain bound by invisible chains. The need for validation, the fear of rejection, the weight of expectations that were never theirs to carry. They spend their days explaining themselves to people who do not truly listen, seeking approval from those who will never give it, holding themselves back so that others will not feel uncomfortable in their presence. But here is the truth. No one who truly supports you will ever require an explanation for your growth. The ones who demand that you justify yourself, the ones who make you feel guilty for evolving, the ones who refuse to see you beyond who you used to be, these are not your people. Imagine a bird that has outgrown its nest. It feels the urge to leave, to stretch its wings, to soar beyond the branches it has always known. But the other birds do not want it to go. They tell it that the world is dangerous, that it should stay where it is safe, that it should not risk failure. And so the bird hesitates. It tucks its wings close to its body. It remains in the nest, not because it cannot fly, but because it has allowed the voices of others to drown out the voice of its own soul. How many people live like this? How many keep their wings folded, waiting for a sign that will never come, waiting for someone to tell them it is okay to leave behind what no longer fits? But the ones who fly, the ones who dare to trust themselves, they are not reckless. They are free. They understand something that others do not, that comfort is not the goal. Growth is. And growth requires one thing above all else: release. The hardest part of growth is not the journey itself. It is letting go of everything that keeps you from taking the first step. The past version of yourself, the one who played small, the one who hesitated, the one who needed approval before moving forward, that version of you cannot come with you. You must be willing to leave them behind. But leaving behind an old version of yourself is not easy. It requires grieving. It requires accepting that some people will no longer recognize you. It requires understanding that not everyone will celebrate your transformation. Some will resist it, some will question it, some will try to pull you back into the person you once were, not because they wish you harm, but because your evolution forces them to confront their own stagnation. And this is where many get stuck. They feel guilty for outgrowing relationships, for changing their priorities, for no longer fitting into the spaces where they once felt at home. They fear that by choosing themselves, they are betraying those who once walked beside them. But tell me this, if a tree refused to grow because it did not want to cast too much shade, if a river refused to flow because it did not want to disrupt the landscape, if the sun refused to rise because it did not want to disturb the night, would you call that kindness, or would you call it tragedy? You are not here to stay small for the sake of others. You are not here to explain yourself to those who are not willing to see. You are here to rise, to expand, to step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. And that does not require permission. It does not require explanation. It does not require approval from anyone other than yourself. But the world will test you. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop seeking validation, the moment you decide to walk forward without hesitation, people will react. Some will admire you, some will resent you, some will be drawn to your energy. Others will feel threatened by it. Let them. Their reactions are not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your burden to carry. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you will recognize your growth without needing an explanation. They will not ask why you have changed. They will not demand that you shrink yourself to fit back into the version of you they once knew. They will simply see you, and they will celebrate the person you are becoming. So ask yourself, who are you still explaining yourself to? Who are you still waiting for approval from? And why? What would happen if right now you decided that no explanation was necessary? That you were allowed to step into your power without justifying it to anyone? That you did not need permission to rise? The answer is simple. You would be free. And once you taste that freedom, once you step into the lightness of living without the weight of justification, you will wonder why you ever sought approval in the first place. There is no need to explain, no need to convince, no need to wait. You are already enough. You always have been. And that is all the explanation the world will ever need. There is a quiet power in no longer explaining yourself. It is the kind of power that unsettles those who once thrived on your hesitation. It is the kind of presence that makes people uncomfortable, not because you have changed, but because you have stopped seeking their permission to exist as you are. The world has conditioned you to believe that you owe an explanation for your growth, that you must justify your choices, that you must make yourself small enough to fit into the expectations of those around you. But tell me this, has explaining yourself ever set you free? Has it ever made you feel whole? Or has it only drained you, left you exhausted, and tied you to people and situations that were never meant to walk with you into your next chapter? Most people never question the weight they carry. They hold on to expectations, obligations, and identities that were handed to them, never realizing that they have the power to set them down. They move through life explaining themselves at every turn, why they are leaving, why they are changing, why they can no longer be who they once were. But the moment you stop explaining, the moment you decide that your path is yours alone, everything shifts. Imagine a lion standing at the edge of a vast open plain. It does not explain why it walks alone. It does not lower its head to make others comfortable. It does not hesitate when it moves forward. It knows its own strength. It knows that the ones who truly understand will recognize it without a single word. And so it walks, unbothered by the noise, untouched by the expectations of those who were never meant to walk beside it. You too must walk this way, but the world will resist. It will call you selfish. It will say you have changed. It will demand that you explain why you no longer fit into the mold it once placed you in. Let it. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their misunderstanding is not your burden to carry. Because here is the truth. When you stop explaining yourself, you step into a kind of power that most people will never understand. You become untouchable. Not because you are distant, not because you do not care, but because you have finally realized that no explanation will ever be enough for those who have already decided not to see you. There is a parable of a wise man who carried a lantern through a village at night. People stopped him, asking why he carried a light when there were already stars in the sky. He smiled but did not answer. Some thought he was arrogant. Others thought he was mad. But those who truly understood did not ask. They simply followed the light. This is how you must live. Let your actions speak. Let your growth be your answer. Let the way you move through the world make explanations unnecessary. Because those who are meant to see you will see you. And those who demand an explanation, they were never meant to understand in the first place. But here is where most people struggle. They fear that by choosing themselves, they will lose those around them. They fear that if they stop explaining, people will walk away. And some will. Some will fall away naturally, unable to comprehend the new version of you that no longer bends to their expectations. But let them go. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with the quiet understanding that their chapter in your story has come to an end. Because the right ones will stay. The ones who recognize your light, who do not need you to explain why you are rising, who do not feel threatened by your growth, those are the ones who will walk beside you without question. Think of the river that carves its way through mountains. It does not stop to justify its direction. It does not explain why it must keep flowing. It simply moves forward, knowing that its path is its own. And in doing so, it shapes the very landscape around it. You must do the same. But be prepared. When you stop explaining, the world will test you. It will try to pull you back into old conversations, into old patterns, into the comfort of justifying yourself. Do not engage. Do not fall into the trap of convincing others of what is already clear within you. Because here is the greatest truth of all. Your existence is not a debate. Your purpose is not up for discussion. Your growth does not require a courtroom where you must present evidence of why you deserve to be who you are becoming. The sun does not apologize for rising. The mountains do not justify their height. The ocean does not seek permission to be vast. And you do not need to explain why you are no longer who you used to be. So move forward. Let go of the weight of explanation. Trust that those who are meant to see your truth will see it without you having to say a word. And trust that those who refuse to understand were never meant to come with you. Because in the end, the only thing that has ever truly mattered is this: your path is your own. And the moment you stop explaining yourself, you will finally be free. There is something liberating about reaching a point in life where you no longer feel the need to explain yourself. It is not defiance. It is not arrogance. It is the quiet realization that you were never meant to spend your life seeking permission to be who you already are. From the moment you were born, the world has tried to mold you, to define you, to shape you into something that fits within the confines of its expectations. But at some point, you must wake up and ask yourself, who am I living for? Most people never ask this question. They move through life carrying the weight of other people's opinions, trying to fit into roles that were handed to them before they even had a chance to decide who they wanted to be. They shrink themselves to avoid judgment. They soften their voice to be accepted. They hold back their truth for fear of being misunderstood. And in doing so, they become a shadow of who they were meant to be. But there is a different way to live. There is a way to move through the world with certainty, with grace, with the kind of presence that does not require explanation. The greatest minds, the strongest souls, the most powerful beings do not spend their energy defending their existence. They do not argue for their worth. They do not waste their breath trying to convince those who refuse to see. They simply are. Think of the ocean. It does not explain its depth. It does not ask for approval before it crashes against the shore. It does not justify its existence to those who fear its vastness. It simply moves effortlessly, unapologetically, because that is its nature. You too must move like this. But the world will not make it easy. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop seeking validation, people will notice. Some will admire you, others will resent you, some will be drawn to your energy, others will feel threatened by it. Let them. Their reaction is not your concern. Because here's the truth. Most people are not comfortable with those who do not seek approval. They have built their lives around the idea that worth must be earned, that validation must be sought, that they must explain every decision to avoid criticism. And when they see someone who moves without hesitation, without explanation, without the need for external approval, it unsettles them. It forces them to question their own limitations. But that is not your problem to solve. There is an old Zen saying, "The lion does not concern itself with the opinion of sheep. The lion does not pause to explain why it walks alone. It does not justify its roar. It does not lower itself to make others comfortable. It knows its own strength. It moves with certainty, and in doing so it commands respect, not through words but through presence. You must learn to do the same. But make no mistake, walking this path is not easy. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people will test you. They will try to provoke you, to make you question yourself, to pull you back into old conversations that drain your energy. Do not engage. Do not waste your time defending yourself to those who have already decided not to see you. There is a parable of a wise man who carried a lantern through a village at night. People stopped him, asking why he carried a light when the stars were already shining. Some laughed at him, others criticized him, but the wise man simply kept walking, never answering, never explaining, because he understood something they did not. Those who are meant to see the light do not need an explanation. This is how you must live. Let your presence speak for you. Let your actions be your answer. Let the way you carry yourself make words unnecessary, because those who are meant to understand will see you, and those who are not will never hear you, no matter how many times you explain yourself. But here is where most people hesitate. They fear that if they stop explaining, if they stop justifying, they will lose people. And they are right. Some people will leave. Some people will fall away. Some will no longer know how to be in your presence without the version of you that used to seek their approval. But let them go, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with the quiet understanding that their chapter in your life has come to an end. Because the ones who are meant to stay, the ones who truly see you, the ones who do not need an explanation for your existence, those are the ones who will walk beside you without question. They will recognize your silence. They will honor your growth. They will celebrate your strength without needing to understand every detail of your journey. So ask yourself, what are you still explaining? Who are you still seeking validation from? And why? What would happen if right now you decided that you no longer needed permission to be exactly who you are? The answer is simple. You would be free. And once you taste that freedom, once you step into the power of living without explanation, you will never return to the weight of needing to be understood. Because the truth is, you were never meant to explain yourself. You were meant to become so undeniable that no explanation is needed. There is a shift that happens when you stop explaining yourself. A moment when you realize that your energy is too sacred to be spent on convincing others of your worth, your choices, your vision. It is the moment when you step fully into your own power, when you recognize that true freedom is not found in seeking understanding, it is found in not needing it. Most people never reach this place. They are too consumed by the desire to be seen, to be validated, to be accepted by those who have already decided not to see them. They waste years trying to prove their value, trying to justify their growth, trying to gain approval from those who will never truly give it. And in doing so, they give away the one thing that is truly theirs, their peace. But the ones who rise, the ones who become untouchable, the ones who walk with an energy that cannot be ignored, they are the ones who no longer explain. They do not pause to convince. They do not lower themselves to be understood. They do not wait for permission to be exactly who they are. They simply are. Imagine a mountain standing tall against the sky. It does not justify its height. It does not apologize for the way it reaches upward, unshaken by the storms that rage around it. Some may admire it, some may fear it, some may try to conquer it. But the mountain does not concern itself with any of this. It simply stands. You must become like the mountain, but the world will resist. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop defending your choices, the moment you walk forward without hesitation, people will notice. Some will admire you, others will resent you, some will be inspired, others will be threatened. Let them. Their reactions are not your concern, because here is the truth. Those who demand explanations from you are often the ones who do not even understand themselves. They question your path not because it is wrong, but because it forces them to confront their own fears or their own stagnation, their own unwillingness to grow. And when you engage with them, when you try to explain, when you waste your energy defending your transformation, you are not convincing them. You are feeding their doubt. But the moment you stop, the moment you no longer feel the need to prove anything, that is the moment you become untouchable. There is a story of a monk who was asked, "How do you remain so peaceful when people criticize you?" The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers me a gift and I do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The lesson is clear. What you do not accept cannot touch you. The words of others, the judgments, the misunderstandings, none of it can harm you unless you invite it in. But most people invite it in. They engage, they react, they defend. And in doing so, they give power to those who never deserved it.